Coming from a generation that watched a lot of television and sort of grew up with rock and roll, I seized on three things: the text, the screen, and action. And so when I started making films, I really integrated the screen into the film, which then became the front plate and the back plate, meaning that I could put text on the screen and it would influence what you saw behind it. When I decided that I was going to make film, I knew that it had to be as much a sound piece as it was a visual piece. Most people in my generation at that particular time were directed towards video and photography, but I wanted to work with film cameras, and large performance projection. And the kinetic element was extremely important to allow that kind of participation I wanted the audience to feel with the film. Cinderella was a very intense production. It involved using a studio for probably 6 months to both build and shoot in and animate in and do everything in it. It was a very intense black box experience, and I wanted simply to get out of the black box. I seized on Cinderella when I found a book that had something like 800 variants from like 1600s to the late 19th century. And within this, I found motifs that are still with us today in the story that we know, the shoe, etc. But most of the stories had nothing to do with the Cinderella that Disney has left us with and ordained us with. Cinderella film was an interactive narrative. You the Better started off years before Cinderella to be an interactive gambling game, which was something I observed. I did a lot of research looking, going around to casinos. I observed behaviors and I observed the sort of phenomena that happens in a casino where the player is betting against chance, using something like belief, will, strategy to predict the probability and also to hopefully succeed in a game of chance. Someone sought me out, an instructor at a film school in Budapest that was the director of the Bela Balázs studio, an archive of avant-garde, experimental, and documentary work. And he saw a picture of You the Better and said, I want you to come and do something. And we'll give you a crew, and if you come to Budapest, we will make a film for you. I was very interested in the Soviet idea of the factory, which included public and worker housing. So there was a community that supported the manufacturing of a product, and it was a self-sustaining community. So I asked to see these places. These factories that I had seen, gas factory, pig factory, all these places that were so utopian to me, were on their way out. And we were struggling to find places where I could shoot. And so I quickly had to abandon the fairy tale and just work with a sort of skeletal idea of a woman who is engaged in the process of manufacturing and wants to escape it. Tension building was first an experiment, strictly an experiment to see how, having come from making Switch Center where I animated architecture, I wanted to see if I got involved in really analyzing how an architectural space is designed and integrate that design of the space with my camera movement, what would happen. And began to think about how stadium architecture is created in order to provide certain spectacle points of view. I wanted to work with this idea that you create a world that people understand through modification, through alteration, transformation, and that is all not just abstract visuals, but it's also performance engaged with these abstract images.